Hey everybody, Mickey Smith Jr. here. So excited to be with you in the space, so excited to be in the place with you today. And part of my mission is to change the lives of educators and students everywhere with a mixture of music and message. I want to help you make your classroom sound, your teaching epic, and your legacy significant. But someone asked, Mickey, how can I do that? You don't understand the challenges we face. Well, I'm like you. I know more than ever that the classroom is a tough place to navigate right now. And even the world that we live in, teaching is an arduous journey. But I want to remind you that it's also a hero's journey. And you're that hero. You're well equipped to make it as long as you keep on going. And that starts with understanding that you have a sound. Understanding that you have, when I say the sound, it's not as a music educator, it's not this audible sound of the instrument first and foremost. It's the understanding that you have a purpose and a passion. You have a unique personal significance that only you can bring into the classroom. And I let educators everywhere know, and I want to let you know today that teaching with our unique personal sound is no different than a flute or a tuba in a band. They don't compete with one another. Like, the instruments don't compete. Matter of fact, they understand that the existence of the other instrument doesn't threaten them, that their unique timbre, their unique sound actually complements the other. That's why I say discover your sound, discover what you have that can enlighten, discover what you have that takes your instruction to a place of inspiration, that takes your teaching to a place of reaching, where it reaches hearts and teaches minds. That's what we want to share with you today, because I believe every child is one sound adult away from discovering their sound of success. So if you'll allow me today, I want to share some principles with you that will allow you to be the sound to change their world. Because again, it's more than just what we provide them. Kids don't care how much we know until they first know how much we care. So I want to start with that, understanding that our teaching is a performance. It's an art form. And before you start the journey, before you start the concert, the performance, so to speak, that is the teaching, I want you to consider, what do you do before you teach? A while back, somebody asked me in an interview, the gentleman asked me, he said, Mickey, after hearing me play for my students and teach my students in a class setting, he was impressed with my level of musicianship. And I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you. His question to me was as follows. It was, Mickey, why teach? And I looked at him and I said, why not teach? Why not teach? Teaching is so powerful. I believe that it is an art form in and of itself. But just like when we prepare for a performance, there's some things we have to do before the show starts. So what do you do before you teach? Well, I would consider this. I would tell you to think about the fact that in a performance, the performance, nothing is put on a platform that hasn't been perfected in a practice room. And if you see teaching as an art form, what's your practice regimen? What are you doing? What type of investigation, what type of research, what type of personal study are you doing to perfect yourself, in essence, in front of those students? Yes, we are humanity on display, but we can be the best version of ourselves for those young people, because at the end of the day, we don't rise to the opportunity. We don't rise to the challenge as much as we revert back to our trainings. So when I step in front of the classroom, I have a system in place that I use to teach, but it starts with showing them who I am as a person. I want to share with you today what it means to discover your sound. What does it mean to discover your sound? Well, I want you to think about this. Take a second right now. Take a second. Before we get into the notes, into the music, ask yourself this. Who was my favorite teacher? I'm serious. Take a second. You've got to close your eyes. Take a few seconds and think, who was your favorite teacher? We talk about sound adults. When you think about that favorite teacher, the first thing you thought about was not their lesson plan. The first thing you thought about was not their curriculum. The first thing you thought about was not even necessarily the subject matter in which they taught. The first thing you thought about was the way they made you feel. The fact that they were a sound adult. See, we never want our sound, our unique personal significance, our purpose, and our passion to diminish the instruction, to diminish what it is, the subject matter that we're trying to teach. But it's as much about the subject matter as it is showing those students that they matter. So each and every day I do a sound check, and I want to share this with you. Before the music, we count off the first note, before the baton, before anything we do, I make sure that I'm being my best self before I get into the doing. Because Shakespeare asked, to be or not to be, that's the question. But I say to be or not to be is the answer. So what is your being? What are you trying to be before you try to do? I say do a sound check, and the word sound is an acronym, SOUND. And I want to share that acronym with you today. S stands for see yourself beyond yourself. And when we talk about seeing yourself beyond yourself, it's the understanding and the notion that what you do matters, but what you do does not matter more than the young people that are in your class. So we want to make sure that we take opportunities to see their value. We want to make sure that the lessons that we're teaching have relevance to them, and not just rigor, but relevance to them, that they understand that they matter, that they see themselves in the experience as much as the experience itself, guys. So again, anytime you do something, doing it with the understanding that you're not teaching students. Rarely will you hear me refer to them as students as much as you'll hear me refer to them as my children, as my kids. And if you don't have kids, okay, then take moments to develop a relationship, okay? And we want to make sure our relationships are proper, are wholesome. We want to make sure that they're healthy, right? But I believed in this season that we're in, this time frame that we're in, that relationship-based instruction is modern day teaching. It is modern day teaching because, again, kids don't care how much you know until they know that you care. Somebody told me, Mickey, I serve a what's in it for me generation. I'm like, that's fine as long as you can show them what's in it for them. Sounds like the trick to me is just finding the relevance to it, seeing yourself beyond yourself. As we talk about the sound, that's S. O stands for operate in optimism and excellence daily. Each and every day, putting your best foot forward. I promise you're not going to feel it every day. So many times we come with the information and the understanding, but it's a heart issue. It's the heart issue. See, these kids don't care about information because they got all the information they need in their pockets and their phones. They're looking for you for something greater. Operating in optimism and excellence every day. It's not necessarily fake it till you make it. It's not necessarily faith it till you make it. It's more face it till you make it. Understand that you are enough. You're valued. You're loved. You're wanted. You're degreed. You're professional, guys. You're the sound adult. Remind yourself daily of who you are before you step into that class, because you can't pour into someone if you've not been poured into. So let me ask you this. Before you step into the classroom, before you get into your means of transportation to get to school, what have you done to prepare yourself to understand who you are? You are phenomenal. If you don't believe me, just a minute ago we thought about that favorite teacher. Do you know somebody sees you as that? Even on your worst day, somebody sees you as their best hope. You're phenomenal, guys. I challenge you today. Remember this moment when you go into the local supermarket in town and the kids see you. They lose their minds. Oh my God, they're in the produce section. It's Mr. Ryan, it's Miss Fontenot, it's Mr. Johnson. Oh my God, Miss Smith, they're in the produce section. They don't even understand that you shop because you're phenomenal. But being phenomenal as an educator is not fair because we're held to a higher standard, and that's okay, guys. Embrace it. Just make sure that you're operating in optimism and excellence each day. Dictate the weather, whether or not something is. Dictate that weather, set your atmosphere, set your climate. We're going to talk more about that as we go through this. But each and every day, understand that you have phenomenal power, but you have to remind yourself of it before you can even begin to remind them of who they are and who they can be. We talked about seeing yourself beyond yourself, operating in optimism and excellence, utilizing all available resources. Hey, we're in a season right now, we're in a time right now where technology is advancing and the world as we know it is changing. And it's forcing us to come out of our comfort zones, right? Utilize what you have right now. It may not be convenient, but if it's available, that's what you got to go for. See, everybody's situation has challenges. And you may look at the person down the road and say, oh man, they got all the trappings, they got the funding, they got all this, but everybody's got something, right? Everybody's got a little pitiful in their story. But you also have some powerful. But the problem is you can't be pitiful and powerful at the same time. So look at what you do have and maximize that. I want to challenge you today to ask yourself, what do I have at my disposal that for whatever reason I've just been underutilizing? And I want to challenge you today to use those resources that you have right now, because I promise you, if you use what you have, more will be added to it. I promise you. I'm living testament. I stand in a band hall today because the little ratty, smelly dingy band hall I operated in, I treated it like the Taj Mahal. We recruited, we filled it out, we packed it out, and as time went on, hey, things took care of itself. And I'm telling you, if you don't give up, if you don't faint, if you don't cave in, that reward is coming, but you have to show that you know what to do with what you got in this moment, guys. Do an evaluation. See what you have in this moment that maybe is being underutilized. So we talked about seeing yourself beyond yourself, operating in optimism and excellence, utilizing all available resources, nourishing relationships. Look, guys, it's simple. I tell my students all the time, it's amazing in the word band, there's the word and, which means I can't do this. I can't be anything by myself. I can only be with the and. I can only be more when I band together, because life is better when we band together. So it's not just about you, it's not just about me, but it's all about we, guys. No one can do anything in and of themselves. Even the greatest person that you see is a living testament to the relationships that are forged. Life moves at the speed of relationships. So if you're struggling right now in your classroom, ask yourself this: who am I connecting with? Who are my mentors? Okay? Do I have I connected with the muse, that inspiration? Do I have somebody that I can look to that inspires me and that I aspire to be more by just looking at their presence and how they operate in their classroom? Do I have folks that come in and help me? Okay? And not just folks that are mandated by the district, but people that you have a personal relationship with. Someone that you don't mind being in what I call your sound circle. Nourish those relationships, because it's through our relationships that we grow and we go to that next level. And then finally, D stands for don't stop. Simple, don't stop. Keep on going. Yes, you're going to face challenges along the way, but the folks that win are the folks that don't give in. So make sure that with each and every day that you made up your mind that come whatever, what whether or not, that I'm going to commit myself to being the best that I can be for these young people that I've been charged over. Because you may be their best hope. You may be their last line of defense. Every child is one sound adult away from discovering their sound of success. Will you be the sound to change the world? This is what I tell myself each and every morning when I wake up. I wake up with a spirit of gratitude before I step into that classroom, because teaching is a thankless task. That's why I celebrate you today. You are loved, you are valued, and you are wanted. You are phenomenal. You are an educator. You mean the world to someone, and you don't even realize it yet. I almost gave up on teaching. I wrote a letter of resignation on this thing called teaching because I didn't see where I was giving it the value. I got caught up on what I saw, and I didn't see what I was looking at. See, there's a difference between looking and seeing. And had you told me that only a few years later that I would be sitting at the Grammy Awards being recognized as the National Music Educator of the Year recipient by Alicia Keys, I would have said, no way. That Alicia Keys would hold my hand and she would say, we need you. To a point where it almost brought tears to my eyes, because in that moment I realized she has no idea that I needed to hear that 4 or 5 years ago. She has no idea that the words "I need you" was just what I needed to hear, because I sat in a season where I felt like what I was doing wasn't making a difference. I'm here to tell you today, we need you. Don't give up. Oh, we're going to get into the music, but I need you to understand that the personal level is so valuable. They need a champion. They need you today. Will you be the sound to change their world? If you do that, then it's about discovering your sound, that unique personal significance, the purpose and the passion, and doing those sound checks daily so that the best version of you steps into that classroom each and every day. Because those kids that are coming into your classroom, they got 2 backpacks. They got one you can see and one that's invisible, one you can't see. And before we teach them anything, we have to unpack those backpacks. And sometimes as educators, we have to unpack our baggage before we step into the classroom. So once you've sound checked, and once you've recognized your sound, and once you're ready to project that sound that inspires others, now it's time to set the stage, guys. It's time to set the stage. So with my class, I set the stage by setting the GPS. The GPS is not what you think. Yes, I am going to take you to a place called success with the GPS, but the GPS is actually a series of guidelines, procedures, and systems that we use in our classroom. And the thing is this: if we set up the GPS correctly, then those things that I cover in just a moment, the code of cooperation, makes the music easy. But for so many folks, they step into the classroom and they think the instruction alone is going to make it pop, it's going to make it happen. And at the end of the day, They don't care how much you know. Matter of fact, I would even say that their behaviors will stop the instruction that you got planned. You got a good plan, you got a lesson plan all fired up. Look, how many of y'all been through that before? You had everything planned up, you had it ready to go, and then the moment you went out there, it's like their attitude said, well, I'm here to tell you today, guys, you can have the greatest lesson plan in the world. You can be the most knowledgeable educator out there if the systems, if the procedures and the guidelines in your classroom are not set up, then the environment and the atmosphere is not going to be conducive to learning. And you'll have to work a lot harder to get a minimum result. So if you would indulge me today, I want to show you 7 things that makes the music easy. It starts with a program that I call First Days, Lasting Ways. And in those first days of school, we create lasting ways of success. And the first 10 days or so, I don't study any music. We don't do any music. But the time that I lose, I make up in the rest of the 180 because I don't have to fight those little internal battles in my classroom, those behavioral battles that can be so draining to any educator. It's like the tortoise and the hare. Matter of fact, we even have a class mascot. We have a turtle, and her name is Tatiana. And Tatiana reminds us that things start slow, but they're going somewhere. She's also a visual representation. So as the kids progress and they succeed in one of the areas that I'm going to share with you, Tatiana moves. So visually they see, oh, I'm winning, even though the concept may be so small that without that visual representation, they'd be totally clueless to it. But if they mess up, then Tatiana can also do that Michael Jackson moonwalk. She can turn it back, right? So it's a great reminder and a visual representation of them, of how they're progressing. And it allows me to make it personal, but not take it personal, right? It makes it fun, and it allows them to make it personal without taking it personal, without taking personal offense. And so I want to show you right now, I'm going to give you a little tour of my classroom here. We're going to talk about the Code of Cooperation. So the Code of Cooperation, if you see right here, and I believe everybody should have a mission statement, they should have a value system, they should have just an idea of what it is you're trying to accomplish. You can't go somewhere if you don't know where you're trying to go. And I believe it's important to begin with the end in mind. Where's the desired destination that we're going? Now, the Code of Cooperation allows us to make sure not only that we have a destination, but we have a direction, right? So each and every day, this directs our attitudes, our mindsets, our behaviors in this thing called the classroom, creating a sound 180. So each and every day we start off class by saying, first one is follow directions. Raise your hand to speak, stay in your seat, be prepared, respect property of others, treat others with respect, gum, candy, food, or drinks are not allowed. And you can see the consequences and all that at the bottom as well too. But I want to focus in on this Code of Cooperation. It's powerful. I developed it. I was at a rough inner city school, and the first day of school, someone was so mad that they, and it's nothing to laugh at, but it was crazy. Somebody tried to kill somebody the first day of school. And as I watched this attempted homicide, I thought to myself, oh my God, this is crazy. How are we going to make it? And I'll say this, the rest of the school year was an incredible experience for me, because I was reminded that in order to be successful in this situation, I was going to have to create an atmosphere that was conducive for learning. So with that being said, we started class off every single day, and we continue to do this by me saying first one is. Now I'm going to include with this a YouTube link so you can see how this operates in the classroom. But when we say first one is, the students respond by saying follow directions, okay? It's very important that you train the students to respond, to be interactive, for this to be a collaborative, so to speak. And I invite the students, especially sixth graders are easy to do this. I say, as loud as you can, shout it out, follow directions. And from that, I use a 10-second teachable. Watch this. So when you say first one is, the class responds back, follow directions. My response is then, hey, I'm gonna boss you until you become a boss. Meaning, I'm gonna boss you on some things, but the moment that I see you taking ownership and that you have, full, dexterity in doing the technique or understanding and operating the technique, then I'm not gonna boss you anymore. Let me give an example. For my students, beginning band, when we teach clarinet, it might take the whole hour to assemble and disassemble that thing, because I have to tell them each little bitty thing. I have to tell them, make sure that the cases are on the ground and that they sit on the ground, crisscross applesauce, because gravity is a lot more friendly on the ground than it is up on your chair. We don't want your instruments to fall and break. We don't want you to break the bridge keys. We want to hold it properly where it's the fewest keys so we don't damage anything. I go through all this litany of stuff, holding and operating your reed, all that good stuff. It takes forever. But then after we do it so much, then I don't have to tell them that anymore. And I might even use that as a teachable, in that 10-second teachable, a teachable moment. I might say, hey, for example, when's the last time I told you guys how to assemble your instruments? And they might say, well, you hadn't. I said, that's because you're a boss at it now. And when you become a boss, then that frees me up. Mr. Smith doesn't say anything. Your job is to make me shut up. And they're like, whoa, that's really cool. So kids understand those little things. I boss you until you become a boss. After follow directions, the next one, and they shouted back at, is raise your hand to speak. Watch this one. Another 10-second teachable. I got 2 ears, but I can only hear one person clearly. Bam, everybody understands that. Then I take it a step farther. When you raise your hand to speak, I'll do one of two things. I'll either answer your question, or the worst thing I'll say is give me just a second. Give me 5 minutes. Let me address that later. But I'll always get your question. Now, to ensure that I am a sound adult, that I'm consistent, that I'm intentional, that I'm trustworthy, then what I'll do is, in the music score that I'm looking at, or in the method book I'm looking at, or on a sheet of paper next to me, I will write down that student's name who I haven't addressed. And as I go through class, I'm putting it visually somewhere where I'm going to put my eyes to. And once I get to end of class, if I see I have not called on that student, then I will honor my word. And I'll say, oh, wait a minute. Johnny, you had a question. Please forgive me. I said, but as I promised before, I want to make sure I answer that. Do you still have a question? Yeah, Mr. Smith, such and such, such and such. No, Mr. Smith, you actually answered it for me. But watch what I've done. I have, with that, I've sent a message to Johnny that he matters. Because most teachers, the kid raises their hand, they brush over it, and that sends a message to a kid that, oh, okay, so I'm not raising my hand again because you didn't honor the guideline, the procedure, the system that you set in place. We have to be honorable. We have to be sound adults, guys. After follow directions, raise your hand and speak, the next one is stay in your seat. And I'll tell them, hey, it's not a hostage situation. You can get up anytime you want to get up, except you got to go through the system of operation. Just like that cell phone doesn't operate unless I operate it correctly. I need you to raise your hand, and then I'll call on you. And then you'll tell me that you need to get out the chair, and I'll let you go, okay? But if you just get out the chair, that's the wrong thing. It's not going to work. And just like that phone, it only works when you work it the right way. See, these are teachable, 10-second teachables that any kid can understand. And as we reinforce that daily, it permeates and it becomes the way we do things. And we do this with all 7 of those things until we get to the point where on the last one, I'll say, don't just talk about it. Be about it. Be about it. Be about the thing that you say you are. One of the things that we talk about each year is making sure that we make it relatable to them. And on the first days, we break down this code of cooperation so that it becomes the compass, the classroom compass, setting the atmosphere, setting the environment for learning. Because if I can go through those things, if I can talk about be prepared, and I can give an example for being prepared, that makes sense to them, then they're more applicable to do it. If I talk about respecting property of others, but then I tie it in to my personal story, which I've told this story so much, it's become something. I even wrote a children's book on it called The Adventures of Little Mickey Keep On Going. And it's a story that the kids really enjoy. And once I finish the story and I talk about how my grandmother bought me my first horn, about how our family didn't have a lot, but that instrument meant a lot to me. And I begin to show them each and every one of you has a story. And your story may just be mom and dad got up and got the instrument. It may be dad had to get an extra job to work it, to earn the money. It may be Papa passed it down to you. Whatever that story is, watch this. It's not just a horn, it's your story, because my horn changed my entire story of my life. My life would have been totally different had I not been exposed to this beautiful thing called music, to band. And then I explained to them, you never have a right to mess with anybody else's story, to put your hands on anybody else's story. Do you understand how that changes the way you see an instrument? It becomes something personal. And then we talk about treating one another with respect. 10-second teachables, guys. In this instance, I'll tell them, I'm going to tell you terrible things in this course of this course, like keep on going and don't give up. And you might get aggravated and mad and say, oh, I can't stand him. He never lets me settle. But what you don't need to understand is this. I'm not trying to rub you the wrong way. I'm not trying to irritate you. I'm just trying to polish you up so you shine. 10-second teachables. These are things that kids can understand. Somebody said, Mickey, why does it have to be 10 seconds? Because a kid's attention span is their age in minutes. So to get through all 7 of these things, I got to make them 10-second teachables. The last one is probably the longest one, and I share a story in the first days of school. Gum, candy, food, or drinks are not allowed. It's about a young boy, a bag of Cheetos, a saxophone, and an unwelcome guest, a roach. And by the time I finish this story, okay, and I paint this picture, nobody's bringing those articles into the band hall. But watch this. Don't just talk about it, be about it. I then have to be the ultimate model of this. I don't even eat in my band hall. I don't do those things. If I need to, if I give the kids an assignment where they're all talking to one another, I'll raise my hand. You see what I'm saying? So they can see, oh, okay, this is actionable not only just for us, but for him too. See, we have to be that sound adult, and it helps to set the stage for learning, and it becomes the cool thing to do because all parties are doing it, right? And even the man that created it is doing it. Mr. Smith is doing it. Then it keeps it from being an attack, because now, first one is follow directions. I have it there because if kids get on your nerves, it's because they're not following directions. Matter of fact, I'd probably still have hair today if I would have discovered this earlier. But the fact of the matter is, when a kid cuts up and I got a class of 50 kids and he's not doing or she's not doing what I told him to say, instead of me fussing at him and going in on him, I'll simply say, hey, first one is, and the whole class shouts back, follow directions. I'll simply say, hey, they said it, I didn't. Do you understand how powerful it is when your 49 of your peers tell you that you're the problem? All of a sudden they become the policeman. So between their policeman and my proximity, the atmosphere is contained, the atmosphere is dictated in a way that learning thrives, and I never have to go in or be personal with them. It's powerful, guys, but it has to be done intentionally and consistently. It's a GPS. It's taken to a place called success, but you got to drive it there each and every day. We start class like that. The first 5 minutes of class, 10 minutes at most, 10 minutes at most. Somebody said, man, you giving 10 minutes to that a day? At most it's 10 minutes. But watch this. Look at what I gained. The rest of the class period is smooth. And if you ever join Sound 180 Educators, that's a platform community I created on Facebook. I've had folks that look at the videos that I share on there, and I've had people tell me, I think your class is staged. Absolutely not. Those kids are locked in and tuned in because we teach intentionally and consistently. I want to challenge you to consider those things today as you're setting your stage. And then the last thing, as we're setting the stage, is understanding that there's levels to it. There's levels to it. For example, I'll give you a quick example. Somebody said, I'm a new teacher. I'm a little nervous about stepping into that first day of school. How do I take in all the stuff? Watch this. If you were eating a pizza, would you shove the whole pizza in your mouth? No. You'd break it down by slices. I want to show you something right here. If we're teaching the way that we eat effectively, then we break it down into slices. I talked about it before. You definitely want to have the beginning set, and then you want to reverse engineer. Begin with the end in mind. Once you know where your destination is, then you can get your address. This is our address, our GPS, so to speak, for success. And then instructionally, here's what I create to operate the year. I take what I want to have ultimately, and then I reverse engineer it. I break it down to a point where I know month by month what it is we want to do. And instead of trying to attack the beginning band and fix everything in one day because Rome wasn't built in a day, watch this. Actionably in September, all I'm focusing is instrument assembly, horn carriage, first 3 notes, concert F through concert D, and then we introduce whole notes and half notes. And by doing it that way, it makes it a lot less intimidating. We've set the stage for our kids to win, so to speak, and for them to feel like they're a success. And they are a success in this experience called the classroom, but it's only if I set the stage for learning. Another element of it is I have to know my audience, and I want to close with this, guys. So many times we get caught up on the subject matter, but I want you to understand it's not just about the subject matter, it's about showing those young people that they matter. As a saxophonist, as a musician, I get a lot of great gigs where I go out and I perform and I stay pretty busy. And it's not because I'm the greatest saxophone player in the world, but it's one of the reasons is because I know my audience. See, I can look outside my audience, and my band and my music is such to where I can look at that audience and I can see, well, I need to do the funk today. Okay? Ooh, I need to do the R&B today. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, Audible, guys. I'm like Peyton Manning with football back in the day. Omaha. Hey, I'm calling the Audible. We're changing the play. We need to do the country. Now, don't look at me like that. I can do some country sax. And I've done something. It's been amazing. I've got some of my best gigs doing the country sax because people don't see it coming. And because it speaks to who that person is. That person in the audience is going, wow, that person really saw me. That Mickey fella, he knows me. Our kids want to know that the performance we're giving out, because teaching is a performance, it's an art form. We create a sound that can either repel or resonate, but we want it to resonate. And your sound resonates with your audience when you've done the time to study your audience and understand who they are. I'll present it like this. I like participation, so I'm a participatory presenter here. So I need you, wherever you may be, to answer this for me. This will change your life, but it's going to change your life in the form of a joke. Teaching is like this. Knock, knock. Come on, look. You know how the knock, knock joke goes. Watch this. When kids step into the classroom, this is our challenge we have. Watch. Knock, knock. Who's there? I am. I am who? That's the question. That's the question they step into our classrooms with. I am who? Who am I? And through our music and our message, our instruction, we provide them a blueprint, not only of what can be, of who they can be, guys. That's what makes teaching so powerful. That's what makes the medium of music one of the most powerful mediums for instruction. Again, they don't care how much you know until they know that you actually care. So today, what are you seeing in your students? I see a behavior problem. Okay, you might, and that may be legitimate. I told you, first day of school I started, I literally saw a kid try to kill another kid, and I only shared that with you so you'd understand the clientele I was working with was not the best, but I had to make a decision that I'm not gonna see behavior problems. I'm gonna isolate and see problem behaviors, and I'm gonna address those problem behaviors. If you understand that, then you understand this whole thing of code of cooperation that I've told you about today is not villainizing the student, but it's isolating those behaviors that we want to see elevated. Because if you also notice, what I don't do with my audience is I don't wag the finger and tell them, don't do this, don't do that. Because if you tell a 10-year-old boy what not to do, that's a rule, right? You tell him what not to do, that becomes a dare. A don't is a dare, guys. And if you tell someone don't do something or I dare you not to do it, the 10-year-old boy, that's exactly what he's gonna do. So instead of me wasting energy on telling you what not to do, I'm gonna empower you and equip you and educate you on what to do. Making every day a Wednesday, W-I-N-S. See, I got a problem at my school. I got called into the office. Principal's like, we need you to change what you're doing. I said, what's wrong? They say kids are falling, they're running to your classroom, and one kid fell in the stairwell today. I said, what you want me to do? She said, she's saying they're too excited about coming to your class. I said, well, you need to come to the class. And she came to the class and she saw that it's not that we were throwing a party. There's actually a lot of rigor in the class. There's discipline in the class. But discipline doesn't mean you're being disciplined in the sense that you're being in trouble. Discipline means just doing things the right way, doing it with excellence. The rigor is actually attached to relevance. You know, what are you doing to show your young people that they matter? I know for me personally, I had a student I taught a few years ago, and I had no idea what the student was going through, but I do know that one day she walked to that very door that leads into this band hall, and she had her head hung low, and she was so sad, so despondent that day, that I got down on my knee and I said, hey, I see you. Hey, I see you. And I said it with a smile, to the point where she smiled a little bit and she walked into the classroom, didn't say anything. 4 years later, I wrote that letter of resignation that I was telling you about earlier. But what I didn't tell you was, in the mailbox there, I got 3 handwritten letters. This is 4 years later. I opened up the letters, and there's a teacher at the high school, local high school, who makes it her assignment, English teacher, makes it her assignment for students to consider one teacher that made the biggest impact in their entire life. One teacher, pre-K through 12th grade, and write that teacher a thank you letter. 3 students wrote me a thank you letter, but here's the craziest part. Not one of those 3 students continued with band in high school. That struck me so powerfully, because it reminded me again that it wasn't just about what I taught. It wasn't the class, it was the experience. It's what I meant to them. What you mean to them means so much. Don't give up on who you are to them. So as I'm reading these letters, I'm so moved because the kids are telling me things I couldn't believe. And I'm sitting here with the letter of resignation that I'm writing. I was in the process of writing. I'm reading these letters, and the last letter was from a little girl, that same little girl that I told you about, that I had that encounter with 4 years earlier. The same little girl who walked in my classroom and didn't say another word to me about the encounter. But on this day, she wrote a letter and mailed it to me, and she said, "You were always so kind. You were always so encouraging. You showed us who we could be and what was possible." She said, "You don't know, but I was struggling with a lot at the time." Now I'm stop right there to let you know that suicide is the second leading cause of death in our young people. And oftentimes kids will show up to school with two backpacks. One backpack we can see and one that's totally invisible, that emotional backpack, that psychological backpack. She said, "I was ready to basically give up on myself. And at the day I felt my lowest, at the day I felt my most invisible, when I walked up to the class, you said, 'I see you.'" Ladies and gentlemen, I have never said "I see you" before or since. Normally I say good morning, I give them some dap. I don't do handshakes in middle school. That's another story. I'd give the dap. But on this day I said, "I see you." Not realizing what it meant to her, not realizing what the sound of those words meant to her. She says, even as I went to high school and I felt like I couldn't make it or I felt like giving up, I would always remember, no, if I give up and if I'm not here, if I toss it all in, it will matter to somebody. Somebody will miss me. Mr. Smith would miss me. Mr. Smith, matter of fact, told me that I'm loved, I'm valued, and I'm wanted. As I'm reading that letter, I'm just boo-hooing because I'm sitting there thinking that what I'm doing has no impact. Ladies and gentlemen, your presence is the present. Your presence is a gift greater than you can realize. I shared that story with somebody because after that I tore up that letter of resignation. And I had no idea that only a few years later, I'd be at the Grammys again, holding hands with Alicia Keys. And she tells me, "We need you." Having no idea that years later, earlier, I had no idea that I was loved, valued, and wanted as an educator. I shared that story with a group, and a lady told me after, she said, "Mickey, that story is powerful." I said, "Oh, thank you." She said, "But you don't understand the significance." I said, "Well, make me understand." She said, when that girl in 8th grade, when that girl was at her lowest, your words were everything that she needed to keep on going. Little did you know, 4 years later, when you would be at your lowest, her words would come back and be everything that you needed to keep on going. I want to tell you today, don't give up. Keep on going. Understanding that you have a sound. You have a sound that's so powerful, that's so critical and so needed right now, that you can make it through this thing called the 180, guys. And I'm here to help you understand that you got to take time to discover your sound, to sound check each and every day. Be your best version of yourself. Set up your stage for success, and then know your audience. Take time to see those children that you teach, because what you do is more than teach, you reach. What you do is more than instruct, you inspire. And I want to encourage you today to stay connected with me. I hope that this is significant. I want to thank this platform for the opportunity to share with you today. Teaching is a noble profession, and you're part of that nobility. So make me a promise. Make me a promise that you'll take time to recognize and to celebrate your purpose and your passion, your unique personal significance as an educator. Make me a promise that you won't give up, that you'll keep on going. Make me a promise that you will be the sound to change their world, because someone's depending on you. And in the meantime, stay connected with me at MickeySmithJr.com. I want to be part of your sound circle. I want to help you continue to grow and go to that next level. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Mickey Smith Jr. Join our community. There's no charge, no obligations, nothing you have to do. It's just, we're better in this thing called life when we band together. We're better together when we band together. So let's continue to grow and go together. You can find out more, again, Sound 180 Educators is that platform, Mickey Smith Jr. I want to help you, and I want you guys to believe in who you are. Do me a favor, make your classroom sound. Make your teaching epic. And I promise you, your legacy will be significant. Until next time, let us be the sound to change the world. Mickey Smith Jr.